killed was his wife.
No remorse.
A group of American soldiers emerges from the shadows and takes out several insurgents while searching for a target in the ruins of a building in the streets of Aleppo. After clearing the area, they encounter a group of people who ask them to free a CIA hostage being held by Syrian government troops. After receiving information about the captive agent, the team leader, John Kelly, decides to move his squad to another part of the city to launch an attack on a suspicious building and rescue the prisoners. At the end of the mission, John Kelly checks the pockets of a dead Syrian soldier and discovers, through the data on his phone, that he was a former member of the Russian army. Agent Richter advises him to drop the matter and get out as soon as possible. However, when they try to escape, a Russian unit fires an RPG at them. Kelly and his squad respond quickly, realizing that the place was not a safe haven for Syrian forces, but a Russian weapons depot. In the midst of a fierce battle, they and the freed king manage to flee to the rooftop of the building, where a helicopter is waiting for them. On board the helicopter, Kelly blames Richter for the deaths of his men at the hands of the Russians. Soon they will blow up the building and get away from danger. However, the situation takes a darker turn when one of Kelly's team members, who had recently retired and was enjoying time with his family, is hit by a truck while taking out the trash. Shortly after, another former teammate is murdered in the street by unknown assailants. These attackers were part of the troops that helped free the CIA hostage in Aleppo 3 years ago. That night, as he and his wife prepare for bed, he decides to go out so she can rest easy. He prefers to settle on the couch, enjoying snacks and music, staying up until his laptop dies and he realizes the power is out in his house. Suddenly, he hears footsteps approaching and a door opening. He pulls his revolver from the drawer and follows the noises. When he finally confronts the intruder, he is ready to shoot the last attacker when he gets shot and is injured. The assailant, running out of bullets, escapes from the house. Kelly crawls to his bedroom, only to discover that his wife is no longer alive. He is taken to the hospital and, after some time, finally wakes up. His Navy captain, Karen Grill, visits him and informs him about the murders of his wife and 2 former teammates. She also talks to him about the security measures implemented to protect the remaining team members. Kelly mentions that the attackers were not common thieves, but experts who had come specifically to find him. He asks her to provide the identities of the attackers, but she responds that she has no information and advises him to rest, as the case is under investigation. After recovering, Kelly joins a Special Forces team in the U.S. Army. Meanwhile, the Secretary of Defense organizes a meeting with Agents Retter and Grid. During the discussion, Agent Retter reveals that the attackers are Russians, members of the FSB, Federal Security Service. He informs them that Kelly and his team had attacked the FSB in Aleppo a few years ago to free the CIA hostage, and that the Russians are acting in retaliation. The secretary concludes that no action should be taken against the attackers or Russia, as this could spark a war between the countries, thus closing the investigation. Karen returns to see Kelly after some time and informs him that those responsible for the deaths of his wife and friends are Russians. She also tells him that the agency has decided to halt the investigation and provides him with the files of those who facilitated his passport in the United States. With all the necessary information in hand, Kelly jumps back into action to solve the case and avenge the deaths of his wife and old friends. He then heads to Andre's office. While pretending to be drunk, Andre's security stops him and kicks him out. Eventually, the protagonist returns to his truck and decides to follow them. On the road, he chases Andre's car and, as he takes a turn, he rams it in such a way that Andre gets trapped in his vehicle. Then, he sets the car on fire and climbs in, threatening Andre while shooting him in the leg to reveal the identity of the 4th Russian member of the team. Finally, Andre confesses that his name is Victor. After a brief struggle, the protagonist manages to get out of the vehicle, but he is arrested by the police. Karen visits Kelly in prison and informs him that they are in serious trouble over the murder. Everyone in the office is upset with his behavior, as the Russian government will retaliate. However, Kelly assures her that he plans to take revenge on everyone involved in his wife's death. He also mentions that he has valuable information they are unaware of, and if they want to know it, they need to get him out of jail, which is full of Russians. Upon returning to his cell, Kelly notices suspicious movement outside. An officer orders him to stand up and turn around to be taken for questioning, but he refuses. 3 officers try to drag him away, but he fights back and threatens one of them while letting the sink water run. He orders them to leave the prison, but at that moment, a U.S. Marshal arrives and invites him to come with them. He hands Kelly a phone to talk, and Kelly takes the opportunity to contact Karen, asking her to meet with the Marshal. The protagonist joins them in a closed meeting at a military facility. Without revealing his identity, they ask him to share the secret information he has, and he mentions Victor's name. Then, they ask him to identify photographs that might correspond to Victor, and Kelly recognizes them. Later, Ritter informs them that Victor is a Russian spy involved in various activities in the United States. He also mentions that he has been a target of the CIA for a long time, but they haven't been able to capture him. The secretary informs them that Victor is hiding in Russia and agrees to let Kelly accompany them on the mission to catch him. After this, Lieutenant Commander Karen, Kelly, and their team prepare to board a plane to Russia. Agent Richter arrives and tells them he will meet them in Moscow. Kelly is suspicious of him and decides to be cautious. As they approach Russian territory, their plane is suddenly intercepted by the Russian Air Force. The Russians demand an immediate landing at Mask Airport. When the pilot refuses, they attack the wing of the plane. The plane crashes into the Barents Sea, in Russian territory. He and the rest of the team manage to escape from the water and go to a safe house. After a while, they travel to Murmansk, where Ritter is plotting something with 2 Russians and money on the table. Kelly accuses Ritter of betrayal and forces him to reveal his true motives. Ritter tells him that he arrived after the plane assault, when they assumed he was dead, and that he has come to finish the mission of capturing Victor. He also informs Kelly that he hired those 2 Russians to guide them to him. Just as Kelly is about to shoot him while choking him, he is stopped by Karen, who begs him to stay calm. Finally, the protagonist manages to control his emotions and decides to spare Ritter's life. Agent Ritter then takes them to Victor's apartment. Upon arrival, Kelly discovers that Victor's bodyguards are already dead. He realizes that Victor, dressed in a suicide vest, is waiting for them. Victor greets Kelly and tells him that he knew he and his team were on their way to Russia to kill him. He also assures him that he wasn't the one who planned the murder of Kelly and his pregnant wife. Kelly keeps listening, and Victor tells him that they're both in the same situation, that someone has brought them there to eliminate each other. Kelly asks him to listen, but Victor presses a button and blows himself up. In the midst of the explosion, a sniper shoots Dallas, one of Kelly's squad members. After the explosion, they have trouble locating the sniper, but they manage to find and take him out. However, another sniper starts shooting. Eventually, Karen and Kelly manage to track down the enemies and neutralize them. Meanwhile, the Russian police and military have surrounded the residential complex, ordering their troops to head to the back of the building. He then detonates an explosive device, causing numerous casualties among the officers, while his men manage to flee the building in a van. Kelly stays behind, keeping the enemies occupied while his teammates escape. He also faces off against the military trying to capture him on the stairs. Finally, the protagonist manages to escape by disguising himself as a Russian soldier and covering his face with a tear gas mask. Next, he arrives at the coordinates in a Russian vehicle. Karen greets him and takes him to a boat. They quickly leave Russia along with the remaining members of their team, including Karen and Ritter. On the boat, Kelly interrogates Ritter about Victor and his connection to the CIA. Ritter talks about his career and mentions that he has a bag of money with him, which will allow Kelly to disappear off the grid. They both agree to report Kelly as dead in the operation to the CIA. Kelly thanks him and apologizes for previously mistaking him for a traitor. Later, while Secretary Clay is in a restaurant bathroom, Kelly shows up and confronts him, accusing him of sending him to Russia to die, mentioning Victor and their conversations. Kelly kidnaps him in his car and, not getting any answers, threatens to harm his family if he doesn't reveal the truth. Finally, the secretary explains why he assigned him to that mission, suggesting that US-Russia relations should be limited to economic issues. He insists that a war with Russia would strengthen the American people by giving them a common adversary. He also reveals that he and his colleagues were part of a plan to bring everyone to one place and have them eliminate each other, leaving the governments of both countries unsuspecting. As they talk, Kelly drives the car toward the river, drowning along with the secretary. Karen manages to rescue Kelly from the water. He hands her the device recording Clay's confessions, and she takes it to the CIA. Karen drops him off at an airport and gives him a new passport, urging him to start over with a new identity and not to forget her, reminding him that she was the one who helped him get the passport. In a post-credits scene, we see Kelly and Ritter talking. Kelly congratulates Ritter on his promotion as the new CIA director and proposes creating a multinational anti-terrorism team with selected members from NATO, supported by the CIA, with Kelly at the helm. This marks the beginning of the iconic team known as Rainbow Six in video games and movies.